And we're live. Welcome to Music Matters with Jason Tramm. Thank you for joining us for our unique podcast community where we explore the triumphs and challenges of the performing arts world as seen through the eyes of distinguished artists. Thank you for helping our platform grow. We just hit 1,500 subscribers on YouTube. We've also added LinkedIn Live and Facebook Live to our streaming platforms that are live and happening right now. And we're so delighted that you could join us. You can hear us after the fact on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. So check us out and follow us there as well. We have a wonderful guest today. We have Miss Chantelle Barry, a wonderful pop singer and also an actress who does great work in both milieus, and we're so happy that she could join us today. Born in Western Australia and now living in LA. Welcome, Chantelle.
Thank you. It's nice to be here, Jason. Thanks for having me.
Really a pleasure to have you here, and I've been following your songs. I've been listening to almost all of them, and
Oh, wow.
so exciting to put a person to the music.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Do you have a favorite?
You know, let's see. I'm going to look
I
at
know
the
that
two
the
I heard.
styles have varied through over the years since my first album.
Which album was? I like "Fly Away." I really like "Fly Away."
Oh, yeah, thank you. That gets used on a lot of like movies and things like that. That one's been a popular one,
What
actually.
year did you write that one on?
That was for the Songbird album. I want to say that was 2012 or 13.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, you've been in music for a very long time. For instance,
Yeah.
you're a young child. Tell us
Yeah.
about your starts. Did you always know you wanted to be an artist?
I did actually. My father was a musician, and that's how, and he was in a band, and that's how my mom and dad met. She was a fan, her brothers were fans, and they all met, and that was the end of that. And um, so music's always been kind of in my blood, I guess. And my two sisters and I grew up singing, and we sang in a group together, and we really sang all over the place. Like any event you could find in Perth, we were there. Citizenship ceremonies, the Great Aussie Duck Race, telethons. It was everything. And I just remember from a really young age, I received this little pink like tape player. At the time it was tapes, and it had a little microphone on it. And I got that for like my fourth birthday or fourth Christmas, I want to say. And it was all over. I started writing songs then. They weren't any good, but I was all about
It
performing. And
takes a wild journey to sort of be that songwriter. It takes a lot of experimentation and
oh yeah. Yeah, you got that right. Yeah, it's taken me a while to hone those skills, I feel, to where I'm really comfortable with my songwriting now. But I just loved it. Music was always for lack of a better word, escape. Not that there was a lot to escape from as a child, but it's the place you can really go to just play
it
and
does transport
be
you.
yourself.
Even today, when I do music, it just kind of transports me to somewhere else, whether it be a rehearsal or a performance or just
Right.
getting together with other artists. It's always amazing.
Yeah, I agree with you. It brings about connection on deeper levels. And yeah, so music has always been like a best friend to me, and just very ingrained in my life. And then my parents enrolled me in local singing and dancing schools, and I learned to do tap dancing and jazz dancing and that kind of thing. And I started performing really young, um, until it was just the the norm for me. Performing every single weekend was like my bottom line, and I really thrived on. Um, the feeling it gave me. I'm sure in many ways that was like an addiction to this like live, the cortisol and all of it.
Feeling the thrill of the audience when you're singing, it's really exciting. I was a boy soprano from a young age too, and
Okay.
when I conduct, I'm a conductor, and it's the same thing. When I get in front of an audience, I feel that same cortisol rush and the excitement of the crowd, and it just
Yeah.
never changes.
Right. Nothing beats that. It's this instant gratification. So I knew from a very young age this is definitely what I want to do in my life. Um, at the time, it was I had my sights set on being a pop star, and my idols were like Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie, and just great musicians.
Great
And
singers, yep,
yeah,
certainly.
yeah. And then when I was about 12, I did my first play, my first musical. Um, my music teacher at my primary school was a an American, and he came to our school and just transformed our music department. I mean, he taught us songs from the Beatles to play on the recorder, and the most annoying instrument you could probably imagine. We were playing,
In
we
the
had
wrong hands, it's deadly.
in the wrong hands, it was deadly. But Mr. Liederbrand, Mike Liederbrand, we're still in touch. So he's like, please
Oh,
call me Mike from now on. But Mike, he really he fed that part of me that was so willing and wanting to learn, and he ended up writing this musical based on a C.S. Lewis novel. It was called The Silver Chair, and he wrote me in as the lead villain, which was wonderful. And I
fun
got
roles to play
oh,
for sure.
the best roles, yeah. And yeah, and that was a game changer, doing a season. I think we did a 2-week season when I was 12 at the local theater company, and I was hooked. I was like, no, if there's a way to combine acting and music, this is it. I'm in. So I auditioned for a couple of the music schools, the music high schools, and um, I ended up choosing to go to John Curtin Performing Arts High School, and on a 5-year scholarship for theater and dance, and that just was life changing for many different reasons, but mostly good.
To be surrounded by musicians like yourself, people who love this and want to make this their lives. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's thrilling, right?
it is the kinds of connections that you make with people when you're all doing what you love, and when that thing happens to be something like music, which is already you know so incredible on so many levels. Yeah, it was great, and I'm still friends with many of the people I went to school with, because of that bond. We did musicals together and performances, and it was just, I anytime I was performing, I just felt like I was super alive, and like I mentioned before, it was really an addicting feeling. So that kept me going for a long time. And then after high school, I did 1 year of college at WAPA, the WA Academy of Performing Arts, where I majored in music theatre. And then after that, I moved to Sydney, and just to pursue acting. But halfway through that year, there was a competition for something called Pop Stars Australia, and it was um, the first ever reality TV show in Australia, for one. And
Wow.
yeah, so we had absolutely no gauge of what that even meant or looked like, and then secondly, it was the first like national search for a pop group in Australia, similar to the Monkees. So I auditioned on a dare. My friends dared me to audition, and I was up for it because I love auditions and those kinds of, especially then I was a lot more cocky, I guess the word is. Very,
Fearless.
very, yeah, fearless. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, fearless. That invincible teenage 18-year-old self of like, I can do anything. And so I auditioned, and I got in the group, and that also was a life-changing experience to have a taste of that kind of pop stardom, the stardom that I thought I always wanted my whole life, at such a young age. Um, yeah, so that
What was it
was
like to be on TV all of a sudden in front of the public eye in a different way than you've ever had before? What was it like? Did it feel like taking the stage in those circumstances?
it was it was great in some ways, um, because it was really filling my cup in the way I felt like it needed to be filled. I'm like, okay, I'm checking this box. This is the pop stardom, but there was also, being in the public eye in the way that I was, and it ended up being in quite a negative way by the end of it, just with the media and everything that kind of ensued after that. And that was a reality check as well. It was like, okay, careful what you wish for, be specific about what you wish for. Just being famous to be famous isn't actually what I want. I want recognition for my talents, and for being this, the singer that I knew I was born to be. Um, so it was different. However, it was, I think I learned so many lessons during that time that have really helped guide me through the rest of my journey in my life, and in my musical career, that it was a valuable time.
That's so important. And, we all know so many stories about young people who get so famous so quickly and then have so much trouble for the rest of their lives. And
Yeah.
sometimes they really need those lessons, but they don't get them, and then they get everything they've ever wanted and their whole lives fall apart.
Yeah, that's right. That does happen a lot. It's unfortunate, especially when a lot of those people are so talented, like they are. But yeah, I really think everything that we endure in our lives, be it positive or negative, really can be looked at as a teaching moment, and it's about what we do with those lessons that determines the course of our next part of our story.
So let's take your next part of the story. What brought you to Los Angeles? What brought you to the States? And what was the transition like being kind of a pop star in Australia and then coming to the States?
Well, it was it was when I was to back up, when I first saw The Wizard of Oz when I was younger, when I was like, 5 or whatever. I obviously was just so taken with the film and Judy Garland. I just became obsessed with this unbelievable woman, who child at the time, who sang like a woman. And I learned very quickly that she went to some place called the MGM school. And I researched, and I learned that, okay, I need to be in LA for this all to happen, for my dreams to come into fruition. So LA is a place I had my sights set on from a very young age. Even as much as we grew up listening to local Australian radio, and I mean, the artists are incredible in Australia. um, we also grew up listening to American music, and my dad, coming from a classic rock band, really, really educated me on some of the best musicians, from the UK and from America. And I just, I had this understanding that that's, being here in LA is really where it's at. It's the mecca for all things entertainment. And then that became even more so when I realized I wanted to incorporate acting into my career as well. Um, so yeah, so coming from pop stars, I'd done that, and then I actually moved to London for a year. I was there for a year on and off. It was the easiest transition as an Australian, visa wise and those kinds of things. And at the time, I was working with a songwriter. I'd done one trip to LA as a tourist, but I was working with this one songwriter, Smitty, and he just opened my eyes to what songwriting here really is like. And I was blown away. And so we'd stayed in contact, and he knew I wasn't particularly happy in London. It was very cold, and I found myself feeling very alone and just kind of out of sorts, I guess. And he was like, you have a suitcase, buy a ticket, buy a one-way ticket and come here. Just do it. So I really did. I took his advice. I came out the next week, and I took meetings and ended up getting offered a publishing deal with EMI. Um, yeah, it was a relatively smooth transition, I think, coming from this um, the the stardom that I'd experienced through pop stars. It gave me this kind of confidence of like, oh yeah, I'm where I am meant to be. I can do this. I'm very much in my element. Um,
It's a great
so
lesson for young. We have a lot of young people listen to the show, and
okay,
young artists have to follow their dreams. And sometimes, taking those risks, you have to kind of step out of your comfort zone and go
yeah,
for it. And it's
100%.
the
Yeah,
artistic journey is always like that. You're always making those choices.
yeah, yeah. It's really true. I often say that and think back to when I was, the times when, even when I experience moments of self doubt now, or any insecurities, I often kind of think back to what would my 18, 19-year-old self do? Like, what's that, the tenacity that drove her? How can I incorporate that more? And it really always comes back down to the fearlessness, and the just those taking those scary risks. And it doesn't mean they're not scary. I think being brave means doing things you're scared of, and that's, in my experience at least, where the greatest reward has come from.
So you started out in L.A. Did your music career take off first? Did your acting career? How'd you meld those two really different artistic pursuits?
Yeah, To be honest, you know, when I was offered this publishing deal with EMI, and it was just after 9/11 had happened. So it was a very tumultuous time in the United States, and around the world, really, you know. And it wasn't, the money wasn't good. And, you know, publishing deals, um, historically, that's, you know, that's what you do. You sell your publishing if you want a big deal, if you want money. And it wasn't a great amount. And my attorney at the time, Dina Lapolte, she was like, you know, hold out, don't sign it. They want too many points. They want this and that. Like, you'll get something. You'll get the thing you deserve. So I took her advice, and I'm really glad I did. Even though another deal didn't come along, it was again another lesson for me. Um, and I sometimes think, you know, had I gotten the kind of success I really, really craved back then, I'd probably be a really different person now. You know, I've lived a lot of my life now and had really normal experiences. And by normal, I mean I've struggled and not been able to pay my bills sometimes, and slept in my car a few nights, and those kinds of things that have really strengthened my character. Um, and maybe that wouldn't have happened had I just kind of taken that smooth route. Um, so so yeah, it I'd say my music career didn't take off back then. That certainly not how I'd envisioned or how I wanted or hoped. Um, and then the acting career kind of did. You know, I was like, well, I'm a trained actor. I'm right where I need to be. So I I worked hard at getting a manager. I did some music videos to try and help that and help my expand my connections at the time. And I signed with my first management company. And yeah, then it kind of, things started happening. The first acting job I booked was on Entourage, and that
It's
was
a
awesome.
great show.
Yeah, such a great show. And when I think I only discovered it last week, actually, I was talking to my husband. I was like, yeah, you know, oh, Entourage is actually my first US credit. Like, that's incredible. I mean, for me, that's a really, really big deal. Entourage was such a terrific show, and just kind of iconic, you know. So I did my first thing on that, and then I did a few co-stars and guest stars, and um, it's really just been this gradual build of working steadily. And so throughout my career, I've adjusted my expectation, I guess, of this overnight stardom to, no, I just want to work. I want to work on quality projects, things that I love and that I believe in, that I'm behind. You know, it's not just about working or a sense of desperation, but working on things that I believe in. And so long as I can do that steadily, I've got a good career, and I'm really, really happy with that.
You get to do what you love, and your music. And so your music videos, were they self-produced? Were they indie
Yeah.
productions? And what's that
Yeah.
like? I just love the idea of the indie production today, because I've had so many different artists on the show who start very humbly, and then they build these incredible numbers. And unlike the old days where you needed a record company to be the gatekeeper for you, people have almost limitless access to a worldwide audience, and it just takes a lot of time and effort. But
Yeah, you're
it's
right.
incredible.
You're right. Yeah, being an indie artist now means something different to what it did back in 2000, you know. Um, I am capable with my own studio, and I do make my own music and videos and that kind of thing. But my first music video came about through I was working for a company called Taxi, writing music reviews. And at one of the conventions, I met a really fantastic writer whose name is Ruckus Sky. And he and his wife are film writers and producers now, directors. It's great. They just moved here to LA last year, actually. And he was like, I heard his stuff while I was doing a critique. It's funny, I was doing a critique of his music, and I
Oh
listened to it.
boy.
Oh my gosh, Ruckus, I want to work with you. And he's like, really? Well, what's your stuff like? And, you know, we made the connection. Then he and his wife Lane started flying me out to Atlanta, where they were based. And just doing these songwriting trips, and it really, really helped hone my songwriting skills. Like Ruckus, his background, I don't even know musically what his background is, but I want to say it's rock, and he listened to a lot of country, and that's just where it was
Interesting.
at for
Well,
us. Yeah,
Atlanta being close to Nashville, that kind of makes some
makes
sense.
sense, for sure, for sure. So it was a really different way for me to do songwriting, and I loved it. So we were doing that regularly, and then we wrote this one song, Letting Go, together, and it just clicked. It was one of those songs where you're just like, ah, okay, this is a good one. This is really cool. So he said, let's shoot a music video for it. Lane and I will do it. We'll figure it out. And so they flew me out, and we planned it. We came up with a concept together, and which is great because I love being involved creatively as much as possible, especially when it comes to story or net narrative. So we planned this concept together. His wife got called in a favor, like literally everything was favors called in. The entire crew that we had, everyone was like, yeah, I'll do it. They heard the song, I'll do it, I'll be part of it. And it was really, really wonderful. We got this amazing house out in Georgia, and as the set, and things kind of fell into place. And then he had a company edit it, and we entered it into a contest, and got some really great attention from that. So it was like, okay, there's a way to do stuff independently and still make it look killer, and not like it's being done in your own backyard kind of thing. So we continued on that path. Like I kept making. When I met my husband Scott, he knew I really just wanted to write an album because I had so much material. He's like, let's do it. I went to college for engineering. Let's do it. We'll do it together. I'm like, okay. So it
Scott's
was.
also an actor and a musician as well, right?
He is. So we have a lot in common. He's probably the more grounded one of the two of us, and technically so savvy. So he produced the album. We wrote a lot of songs off this album. It was Simple Things. In 2009 is when I released that one. And a friend of ours, Kevin Van Hook, another film director and producer and writer, he did a music video for that. And so it's like this slow progression of who do we know, what funds can we pull together, what can we do on our own. And now it's gotten to a point with this last single that we released last year during the pandemic, Connect. We shot the video ourselves in our house, completely ourselves, and a friend of ours helped edit it. And so now it's like, oh, we actually can be fully sustainable.
Isn't
And
it amazing what we've all learned during the pandemic? I'm a
oh,
university professor in addition to being a conductor, and I've
wow.
had to learn how to do two choir and orchestra rehearsals via Zoom and Skype and that type of craziness, and to do virtual ensembles. My son and I put together over 100 virtual projects during the COVID between my different groups and different projects just to keep communities together. And I'm just
Wow.
amazing what people like you and your husband can do, what we've all had to learn along the way,
Yeah.
because who would have thought that that was even possible?
Who would have thought? Yeah, but likewise, that's really commendable, Jason. Like, wow, over 100, the
Well, who
creative
who could
project.
be who can it was we had like 80 to 100 singers submitting choir files from all over the country. Really, it was kind of a wild thing. People were joining in. It's people couldn't sing in choirs, and that was a really devastating thing to those. But they would practice via Zoom and then submit their files. We'd weave them together into choral and orchestral productions, and it was quite a
Incredible.
crazy period of our lives because we did so much technical things, and we kind of replaced the musical for a while. But it's kind of amazing what you can do, and when you have to be creative. And who can be more creative than people like yourself? Creative people, artists.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah, I hear you. And I always say, I feel like some of the best things, the best creative things come from, moments of turmoil and stress. It's like, no, do we want this pandemic? No. Do we want it to go away right away? Yeah, please.
Yesterday.
However, right, there has been a lot of positivity that has come from it. And, what I've seen personally is on the creative front. So those are the gifts I'm trying to focus on, I think, during this time.
And you were mentioning before that you do a lot of voice acting. How you can do that from your house too? What an incredible way to keep your acting going, and it's incredible what you can do from your home. I always thought back in the past you had to go to the studio, do the voiceover work, and then come home, but you could even do it from
Yeah.
your home.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I mean, and it was like that for forever. I think right up until the pandemic hit last March, it was a lot of driving to Burbank, the studios, and early mornings and late nights, and hustling for those jobs. And there's still that hustle, absolutely, but the stress of not having to drive anywhere, or as many places now, is really, that's another gift for sure.
So where can we hear your voiceover work? You're in some really exciting projects you're mentioning. Tell us where we can hear them in the
Yeah.
future.
Well, last year, I I was in a game. I was in the Iron Man VR game, and I played the villain in that, Ghost, another villain. It's one of those things.
That
And
must have been fun.
yeah, really,
Video
really.
games are such massive budgets these days. It's incredible what they're doing,
Yes.
hiring full symphony orchestras and
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
My sons play the video games, and I'm just amazed by how great the stories are and the actors. I'm like, I know that
Oh,
voice, I
yeah.
know that actor.
Exactly, exactly. And we do know there are so many recognizable celebrity actors part of the cast, and not celebrities who are just unbelievable actors. That's the thing about video game acting. I don't think I would have thought before being a part of it that it was a real platform to act, but it absolutely is. You're on a set and you're interacting with others. It's absolutely acting, and it's very, very fulfilling. And with Iron Man, especially, we did half of the sessions were just voiceover, and half of them were motion capture. So we'd have head cams on, sometimes dots, those kinds of things. Would be on a big
Oh,
stage and a green screen, and doing the scenes, and we'd rehearse it like a play with the other actors, and then we'd shoot it until we got it right. And it was
I
so.
had no idea how they do those motion cap. That's incredible.
Oh yeah, I love it. It's one of my favorite types of voice acting to do, for sure. Video games where I get to do motion capture,
Was
like
that the first video
yeah.
game you've done that massive project for Iron Man?
No, I done other projects before. My first video game was for Mad Max, and that was really, really fun. And funnily enough, it was with the very same director who's a friend of mine, Chris Salter. Chris Salter Zimmerman. No, Chris Zimmerman Salter. Sorry, I always got that wrong. And she cast me in Mad Max, and I worked with her back then. And then we just kind of stayed in touch, and I'd worked for other projects, but it happened that she was directing this one as well, and it's so much fun. It's just a different thing to work with someone on a
It
stage.
totally makes sense that they have a director and a producer, and they're such huge projects. I
Yeah.
just never thought, we played some of those type of games. They're massive, immersive experiences, really impressive, and it makes sense that they have an entire production crew and team.
100%. It's like a movie. It really is. Yeah. So, luckily, by the time the pandemic had started, we'd already shot out all of the motion capture stuff, so we were fine there. But we still had a few VO sessions to do, and no one could go into work. So, luckily, we were my husband and I are capable with our studios, and um, I was able to do. I think I did two sessions. The last two sessions for the game were done from my home during the pandemic, and then the game was released during the summer, and or sooner than that maybe. But it was great. It felt like a really big deal to be part of such a huge franchise, and to be, it's a Marvel production. I'm playing a villain, and I'm a woman, and I'm a person of color, and all of these things the conversation had just shifted to diversity more within the States. And it was just a really great time to be part of something so huge. A
We'll put it
huge
out
gift.
into the ether that hopefully the Marvel universe has room for another supervillain
Yes,
on the big
yes,
screen.
I'm ready. Yeah, so that we did that, and then Otherwise, it's been a lot of different things. I was just saying, I think I explained to you beforehand. I did a job for Yellowtail Wine yesterday, Yellowtail in Australia, so I got to use my own accent for that, and that's fun. Um, yeah, kind of all over the map. It's like every day is something very different. I worked on the Black Widow movie, doing some voice match stuff for Scarlett Johansson and Florence Pugh, and that was really, really incredible as well because that was before the pandemic as well, and so I got to go to Marvel Studios and just being there, you're in the Disney building, and then you get in this elevator, and the second it opens, you're in Marvel universe, and it's just
Please
so
tell us what that's like,
incredible.
and
I mean, the
I'm
walls,
curious.
it's so great. The Avengers are all over the walls, and it's like you could geek out for days in there, just with everything that they have, all things Marvel. It's
Who's your
really
favorite Superman and your favorite villain? Favorite superhero and favorite villain?
um good question. I really do love Iron Man.
Who doesn't? Robert
Yeah,
Downey owned that role.
yeah, that's the thing. It's like what Robert Downey brought to him as well, Yeah. Um And I think Black Widow as well would be, yeah, I love Black Widow.
Yeah, she's a great actress, and I just love the character, and she's
Badass.
moody and badass. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It's just like the ideal, like you know, if I had a daughter, I'd be like, grow up to be like her. Like that is who we model our women around, maybe not punching and kicking, but when necessary,
confidence. Yeah,
confidence, confidence. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, it's been really incredible, with having this extra layer of voiceover within my acting career, because I get to play so much. What I did a couple of episodes of Curious George. I did one during the pandemic, one where I got to sing a song, and I think that episode comes out in the fall. So that's something exciting. Animation's really, really fun to do as well. I'd like to do more animation where I get to sing though. I just feel like it's the
two
perfect.
worlds colliding. That's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah, going back to when I was 12 and I got to act and sing. It's like,
Inspire the next generation who are going to be the
yeah.
next artists to come up the road.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, I consider myself very lucky. I have many different facets, and they're all very fulfilling.
Well, really incredible how you've built your career and how you've maintained such an interesting artistic course. And I love these kind of individual careers that we can make today that fuse so many different skill sets.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really possible now. Whereas, when I was growing up, I was constantly told, you have to choose. What do you want? Do you like singing more? Do you like, and it always bothered me because I just I don't believe in that. If you have different gifts or different passions, why not be able to express them all? And now we're very much in an era where we can and do. So I fully encourage and support that. If you have multiple passions, go for it. That said, what you focus on does grow, you know. So if you need to adjust or, refocus on something for that, to really help grow that part of your career or your passion, then by all means, but it doesn't mean you have to ditch the other things.
At age 46, I've done so many different artistic things in my life. It's amazing how the roads can diverge. You find something new that you love, and you come back to what you love. What's it like when you go back to your singing and you do concerts? Was that something you just love to be on the stage again? And
Yeah, I do. I'm really craving performing again because, like I said, I grew up performing so much that it became part of what how I identified, I guess is the most accurate way of saying that. But so having not performed live in that capacity for a while, I really feel that void, I guess. Which I get to feel while I'm writing and that sort of thing. But I am looking forward to getting back out there and just doing shows and expressing myself and, having that kind of connection and that live audience again.
I've
I,
forgot what it was like to be in front of a live audience. I got my first two shows this week coming up, and it's exciting.
ah,
I get in front of an orchestra. I'm doing Hollywood music on one concert, then Beethoven. So I get to do the fun kind of pops music, then the serious Beethoven, and it's
that's incredible.
boy, it's exciting to just even get in front of my colleagues again, and just to see people I
Yeah.
haven't seen in years, and
Oh my
it's
gosh.
going to be very emotional.
I can imagine. Absolutely. And do you have a favorite, or, will you go from the pop show and go, okay, now I get to do what I love and do
Not
Beethoven?
necessarily. I just love music. So
Yeah.
doing pops music. It's all like some of this great John Williams scores and Star Wars, and it's
Oh,
incredible music. And John Williams was writing. He was kind of paying homage to like the planets by Holst, which are wonderful, and this kind of it's all there. So
okay.
I think the film scores are genius. They're so brilliant. Everyone loves that melody, and to get in front of an audience of a large group of people, and they're gonna love this music. That's a gift, and I can't wait to
Oh, yeah.
give my best to that. And then the Beethoven's a different thing entirely. I'm going to tell the audience the story of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, which is about Beethoven losing his hearing, retreating from society into his music and through his pain and suffering. And the piece is about light over darkness. You have minor
Wow.
movement, minor movement, minor movement, and all of a sudden you're in triumphant C major after this, all the cloudiness and the storm and the challenges he faced. The artist triumphant at the end, and that's we can all relate to during COVID,
Mm,
how much challenge we faced, and
wow.
Beethoven can speak to us from the grave and kind of inspire us even today.
That is really inspiring. Really incredible how you can still express yourself in a beautiful way, even through and after the greatest adversity ever.
I
I
mean,
mean,
the artists, that's why artists struggle and suffer is we have so much to say. We put it into our art, into our acting, or singing, or violin playing, whatever it may be,
mm,
but it's got the power to move people's hearts.
right. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I feel like the older I'm getting, the more I'm understanding that our gifts are really there to be shared. You know, uh,
Perspective is such a marvelous thing. At 46, I
yeah,
completely relate. And I
yeah,
teach undergraduates, and I just love to watch them, like to teach them about great music. And I don't put down pop music. I love pop music. I love rock music. It's just different artists and different ways of expression. I'm like,
yeah,
there's always been pop music, too. During
right.
Beethoven's time, the pop music was very different, of course, because everything's changed from 1803 or 1805.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
but that existed back then, too. And
yeah,
it's just a different way of expressing yourself.
right, right. Wow, that's incredible. I wish I could be there to see your shows and see you
I'll be on
perform.
my YouTube channel for sure after the fact.
Oh, what's that way? Okay, fantastic.
That's
Good.
why my son does all my video work. We've been doing that for years, so we get to share it after the fact, and it's really special to, something. Boy, I'm glad I learned before the pandemic, something we had mastered before that, do lots of filming and
Yeah,
capturing these moments because during the pandemic, those moments didn't exist.
right, right. Yeah, good.
What's it going to be like when you get back in front of an audience? What are you going to enjoy the most?
That's a good question. I think I will probably enjoy being able to share this different part of myself. The songs that I've written post pandemic have been a lot um what's the right word? I don't know. A lot deeper, more real, more authentic, I guess. Yeah, I a few years ago when I downgraded my dream of being a pop star to just, music can be a hobby. I'm just going to do music as a hobby. This way I don't have these high expectations and I'm not always trying to please someone else. And I'm doing music for the right reasons, the reasons I started it, just to kind of fulfill this, this creative um, vessel, I guess. And and so now I feel like the songs that I'm writing are just the truest me. For lack of a better way of saying that, that's just how it feels. They're really just me, and I'm excited to share this part of me with others.
That is exciting because ultimately, with today's indie audiences, they I think they kind of they key into realism. They key into like you being yourself, and
Yeah,
once you find people who get it, they're going to be your fans. They're going to be the ones who say, man, I can't get enough of this. I want to hear her more. And they'll check out her
Yeah.
acting. It's like people really want to get to know their artists today in a way that wasn't possible in the past.
I agree. I agree. I don't subscribe to many artists' emails, like newsletters, but Alicia Keys is the one I do. I've always loved Alicia Keys. There's always been, she's
She's
incredible.
very special.
She's
Absolutely.
very special, yeah, and just truly radiant. Not in a presented way, but there's truth. There's nothing but truth there in her eyes and her smile, and she just radiates. And so I got her newsletter last week, and I was reading it, and just watching all the videos that she's just made about how she grew up, how she was raised by her Irish Italian mother, and she's just recreated a room to be like the room that she was creating in when she was living in Harlem when she was young and she first got her deal. And she has a bed in there, and the piano is right at the end of her bed, and she has all this inspiration and these photos on the wall. And I just couldn't get enough of it. I was beaming from ear to ear just watching her, just listening and learning and soaking it all up. Like, I felt genuinely interested. And so that's, full circle. I think you're right. People just, I know I do. I just want to connect with the people I love the most, that I'm so inspired by, in the most authentic way. Um, so bringing as much of myself as I can to my music has been a game changer for me as a person, just in my life, but definitely musically as well.
You have so much to share with people. Do you ever teach? Have you ever thought about teaching? I mean, you've been performing for a long time. You're good at so many different things. Have you ever thought about going into teaching and sharing some of that with the next generation?
Yeah, actually, over the last few months, maybe the last 6 months, it's a discussion I've been having. It's something I would really love to do. It's just a matter of how will I do it? Like, perhaps it could be a course, and then what will I teach? But I really think it would incorporate all of, like, I do a lot of things to express my creativity, including cooking. Like, that's just something
That
that
makes
also
sense. Another art
feeds my
form.
soul. Yeah. You can just express yourself. And granted, I grew up with a mother who's a phenomenal chef. She calls herself a cook, but it's a chef. She's a chef. And so I think I have that confidence of, like, well, if I messed it up, I messed it up. Whatever. It's not, nothing has to be perfect in that regard. But I feel like, in when I do decide to do something where I can share my knowledge with others, which I really want to, I want it to encompass all of these creative things. Me as an artist, but cooking is something. It's a way. It's a
You
way
have
to.
so much to share. I can't wait to see how that manifests itself.
Me too. Me too, Jason. Thank you.
And what's something you've learned about yourself through this COVID period, this challenges and trials? What's something that this has taught you personally?
Oh. Um. Well, I think during, and I don't know if it's because of COVID necessarily, but I think having so much time, has so much more time with myself, um, having to carve out time for self-care just because I'm at home all the time, and not actually having to make appointments necessarily other than sessions, doesn't mean that I'm taking care of myself. So having to carve out time specifically for self-care, I think that's a big one. And also the other one, would be a new mantra I have, which is progress, not perfection. And this is something that's really, really helped me, because I don't know about you, but I grew up, like, just being a perfectionist, in everything that I do,
So
wanting to
many
do it
musicians are, and that's such an
right.
important lesson because
Yeah,
so many people get stifled because it's not perfect. They won't do
exactly.
anything, and they'll just stand there and not gain momentum.
Exactly. And where I found myself at for a few years. I realized I was just kind of idling, and in this one position, going, well, I'm not going to be better at that because I can't, or whatever the reasons are. Um, and it doesn't it doesn't matter, because even if I was, like, I realized, even if I did master the piano, the finish line would move again. There would be something else to then become perfect at. And it's just such an unattainable goal, and not certainly not the way I want to live my life. You know, I'm living now. If I live for in 10 years, I'm going to be this, then I may not ever get there. And what a disappointing way to live. So, progress, not perfection, just for me, it puts things in perspective and reminds me that being human is exactly what I am, and that's okay. And this is where I am in this moment. So long as I'm trying, so long as I'm living and doing, then I am living perfectly, you know?
Thank you so much for sharing that. It's such a great lesson for us all. Any artist, any person who's on here listening can, I hear so many people are paralyzed by this kind of everything has to be perfect all the time, and
Yeah.
it never really is.
Yeah. Yeah. I can relate. Yeah. Yeah. We're all human though. We always have to remind ourselves that.
And it's a business that can be very difficult at times. We all have to deal with rejection in different ways
Oh, yeah.
constantly. It's a normal part of the performing business. But
Right. And it's hard to not let that rejection become part of how you identify. But, compartmentalizing and realizing that as much as I'm an artist and a musician, that's not all that I am. So if I'm criticized in certain areas, that's all it is. It's often an opinion, just, a criticism. Can I take it? What can I do with that? Can I just accept it? It's about I think reconditioning the way you receive things, receive information.
well, really wonderful to talk to you today and to get to know you. How can people find out more about you and what you have coming up?
Thank you for asking. I use Instagram as my main social media platform.
And you
So
have one of the best handles on Instagram too.
thank you. Thank you. Yes, it's at Chantelligence. But yeah, it's easy to find. And I post, yeah, I try and post regularly, and really my page is a bit of everything. It's really how I live. It's me cooking, it's me writing new songs, it's me living, spending time with my dog, with my husband. It's all things that I am. Um, that is my life.
Do you have
Yeah.
a song coming out soon? What's the next on the docket musically?
Um, well, I have a few that I've written post pandemic, and or during we're still in the pandemic. I keep saying post, but um, during the pandemic, I've written a few, and I'm quite excited about them. There's one in particular called "Pick Up the Pieces" that I'm hoping to release soon. I think I might shoot a music video for it, so I'm just kind of getting my head around the concept for that, and then I think I'll release that. And then overall, I think I'll aim for either an EP or another full length record with, keep building the songs.
Well, continued success and your artistic journey, and thank you for sharing that. And I can't wait to see what the
Thank
next step
you.
will bring.
Thank you, Jason. I really appreciate your time, and it's been a really nice conversation.
The
Thank
next
you.
time you're on the East Coast, we'll have to get together and
For
talk
sure.
about cooking.
For sure. Yes. Yes. I make a really great pizza.
No,
I'm just gonna put that out there.
well, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us on Music Matters with Jason Tramm. Please remember to subscribe to us on YouTube, on all of our social media platforms. Check us out on our streaming platforms on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, LinkedIn Live, and Facebook Live, and soon to be others as well. Thank you so much for joining us, and remember, keep music alive.